edition of This Day in Black Baseball History. And I want to thank everybody who joins me this evening for coming in live. And this is a live broadcast. So, yeah, a lot of things can happen with live broadcasts. It's kind of like doing live TV. But if you enjoy what I'm doing here, go ahead and subscribe and let's go to work and let's talk about a little bit of baseball. And these are baseball feats that happen through the years. Of course, today is the January 15th edition, 2026. And these are things that happen through the ages on January 15th. So let's get immediately started. Okay, so Charlie Mills, this is January 15th, 1911. Charlie Mills announced in the St. Louis Stars and Stripes newspaper that he had signed Bobby Wallace, a third baseman with the 1910 Chicago Leland Giants, to be his manager and captain of the St. Louis Giants in 1911. He also claimed to have signed Chappie Johnson, Stillorm Taylor, and two members of the Brooklyn Royal Giants of New York. So St. Louis is getting serious about baseball in 1911. And St. Louis has one of the greatest legacies of African American baseball. I think many cities do, but St. Louis is one. I don't know if they always receive the credit for the things that they were doing progressive as far as back as 1911, actually even before then. So yeah, Charlie Mills, he's going to be a name that you need to remember if you ever hear about St. Louis baseball, all right? So let's go to another one. How about January the 15th, 1916? We're just going to move one more year forward. The Philadelphia Tribune reported that Cumberland Posey did most of the scoring in his teams, the Monticello team, who defeated Howard University by a 36-18 score, while Posey did most of the scoring. And you know, in those low scoring games back then, the guys, they didn't have a shot clock, so they would just hold the ball and just keep holding the ball. So anyway, Posey scored 10 points from the field and played a great game for the crowd that was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to see the Monticello team. That's Cumberland Posey's team. And by the way, Cumberland Posey is enshrined in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. And if you've never heard it before, just know that he is both in the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York, and the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts. Not too many people can make that boast, but Cumberland Posey is definitely one of those people. All right, so that happened on January the 15th, 1916. So you got baseball players, and Cumberland Posey was a baseball player for the Homestead Grays. He eventually became owner of the Homestead Grays. Of course, he passed away in March of 1946. All right, how about this one? This was kind of unusual one, and some of these things I'm still trying to research on them a little bit. But January 15, 1927, a guy by the name of Gene Allen, an African-American pitcher, is arrested in Emporia, Kansas for possessing liquor. How about that? Can you imagine that? And this is during the Prohibition era, right? So you got caught with a bottle of brew, you were in serious trouble. So anyway, they said Allen's home was raided by Sheriff Tom Owens and deputies. So they came to his house and raided his house and found liquor. How about that? And Emporia, Kansas, I've been to Emporia many times and spoke down at the University of Emporia State. Used to be Emporia State Teachers College. Actually, George Sweat, who played for the Kansas City Monarchs in the 1920s, actually attended Emporia. So anyway, they said they found a jug and a bottle containing alleged whiskey and alcohol. And they said Allen is a prior offender, so evidently he had done this before, might be sent to Lansing State Penitentiary, and that's down in Lansing, Kansas, right next to Leavenworth, Kansas, not too far from my house. And I've been planning to do some research to see, through looking through the prison records, if Gene Allen ever went to prison. And of course, I can check that. I'm going to do that. So Gene Allen, and once again, there are many great names in this whole saga of the Negro Leagues that never get talked about. And once again, I'm not sure how high Gene went in 27, but he definitely pitched for the Emporia team. So we got a few people joining. Let's see. is this a pep talk? Not a pep talk. It's definitely a baseball talk. And so somebody said, I hope you're having a great night. I am. I am. Much love from Arizona. All right, Arizona. Was I talked about Arizona recently. I was talking about. I have a trivia question. Can you name the two Negro leaguers that were born in Arizona? And most people couldn't get that. If you remind me, I'll come back in the end and I'll tell you who they are. So you can look that up and see if you can beat me. But definitely there were two, and both of them were pitchers from Arizona. All right. So okay. So somebody said, "What's up?" Is Satchel Paige one? No, Satchel Paige was from Mobile, Alabama. But now, if you go back and listen to my yesterday broadcast, I was talking about Satchel Paige the first night, the first time he got recognized in his home state of Alabama was in 1972. And believe it or not, he received a plaque. And guess who gave him the plaque? George Wallace. Can you imagine that? George Wallace gave Satchel Paige a plaque. And of course, when I was growing up, the only thing I can remember about George Wallace was his issues on segregation. Segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. And that was George Wallace. But in 1972, he had to give Satchel Paige an award, and the event drew 3,400 people there, and Bob Hope was there, and I was talking to Linda Page here just today, and I was relating this story. I was talking about her dad in my last broadcast, and she said that Hope used to sing Christmas cards to Satchel Paige. How about that? Can you imagine being a kid and getting Christmas cards from Bob Hope? You had to know your dad had to be somebody to be getting Christmas cards from Bob Hope. And Bob Hope, in the deal that he was talking about Satchel Paige in 1972, he said, Satchel Paige is so old, he played for the Cleveland Indians when there were real Indians on the team. How about that? So anyway, that was Satchel Paige. But yeah, no, Satchel Paige, he wasn't from Arizona. Look, I'll go ahead and tell you who the two guys were. It was Ford Smith and Bertram Hunter. Those were the two guys who both pitchers. Look them up, Ford Smith and Bertram Hunter. And one of them played, well, actually, they both played for a minute with the Kansas City Monarchs, but they played for other teams as well. Okay, so let's go on to another fact. January 15, 1932. And now I'm talking about guys who are playing other sports now. So freshman guard Pat Patterson and forward Peckinhouse Adams good play in a 44-22 basketball win over the Bishop Bears on the Wiley University basketball court. Yeah, Bishop College. I have a connection to Bishop College. When I was in the 12th grade, I received a music scholarship from Bishop College, and I had all my papers, everything signed. And at the last minute, I pulled out. And I ended up going on the road with the band and going for fame and fortune. Never got the fame and fortune, but I had a great time playing with the band. It was a group called Threatening Weather out of Kansas City, and we traveled all around the country. And so didn't take my scholarship from Bishop, but I still had my papers. And back then, all I had to do was keep a 3.0, and I had a full ride to play music in the marching band down at Bishop College. I wonder what would have happened had I gone down. But I'm pretty happy with how my life turned out anyway, so I'm not complaining. So yeah, so I do know about Bishop College, and of course, Pat Patterson goes on to be a high school coach as well. And one of the guys who listens to me played under Pat Patterson in high school, so hopefully he'll get a chance to see this broadcast. All right, and Wiley College turned out a lot of great players who came to the Negro Leagues. Mex Johnson, Byron Mex Johnson was one of them. Grady Orange was another one. L.D. Livingston, Leroy Taylor. Man, Wiley probably sent more men to the Negro League than any other college. And that was Wiley College out of Marshall, Texas. All right. So anyway, let's go to how about this one? How about January 15th, 1932. At the age of 30, let's see, let me see here. I'm going to have to change this so I can reach it here, so I can read the whole thing. Uh, January 15, 1932, Charles E. Chino Smitty Smith, born in Greenwood, South Carolina, population 4,824, died on this date in New York City at the age of 30. And they say that he contracted yellow fever while playing baseball in Cuba, and that's what he died from there right in the off season. And how about this one? This guy was a great player. The first time that a black baseball team had played games in Yankee Stadium, that was July 5th of 1930. Well, we know Rap Dixon hit 3 home runs that day, but Chino Smith hit 2 in the right field that day. Chino Smith, he was a great player, great hit player. Actually, 1930, uh, Rollo Wilson, excuse me, writing for the Pittsburgh Courier, stated that Clint Thomas, Fats Jenkins, and Charlie Smith, they call him Charlie Chino, they call him Smitty, are the greatest outfield now in baseball. And when he said that, he wasn't just talking about Negro League. He was talking about baseball, period. And just so happens that Fats Jenkins is also a basketball player with the New York Renaissance team, and he is in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. How about that? So these are great players right here. So he said that's one of the greatest outfielders. And he said they're great for their attack and their defense. And then he went on to say Smith is the peer of all outfielders of the day. He is a better hitter than anyone you can name. If you can find a fielder who has a wonderful arm, he challenged you to find one. He said last year he had more assists, that'd be 1929, than any outfielder in the Negro League. So Rollo Wilson thought a lot of Chino Smith. And Chino Smith, if you go and do some research on him, this guy has some of the highest batting averages that you want to see. And this was just in the games against other African American teams. I'd be wondering what he hit in the whole season. This guy, we're talking about a 400 hitter against other African American teams, but he probably was a 500 hitter against everybody else. This guy could hit, man, straight out could hit. The only person I know who could probably give him a really run for the money when it came to picking up hits was a guy by the name of Judd Wilson. That guy could rake. Man, he could pick up hits in bundles. So anyway, that's Chino Smith. Do you know anything about him? Look him up, guys, all right? And if anybody else is joining me, let me know where you're joining from. That's always the fun part here, all right? So I'm just pumping out information tonight. All right, so let's go. Got a couple of more. January 15, 1941. Ted Strong, another multi-sport athlete, scored 12 points to lead the Harlem Globetrotters basketball team to a 44-28 victory in front of a crowd of 900 fans at the new high school gym in Port Angeles, Washington, to defeat the Port Angeles Bankers. Now, guys, basketball has really evolved over the years. And when the Harlem Globetrotters would play, man, they might play in the high school gymnasium. They might play in the main arena downtown. They might play in the junior high. Wherever you could get the crowd in, that's where they played. And this was the beginning of the NBA as we know it today. But a person like Ted Strong, man, this guy was outstanding. And he is somebody that you want to know about, Ted Strong. Look him up. Great baseball player. And Buck O'Neil thought a lot of Ted Strong. And I wrote about that in my book, John Buck O'Neil, The Rookie, His Words, His Voice, right? The Rookie, His Words, His Voice. And you can pick that up on my website if you're interested in that, okay? So let's see. Last one is I'm going to give you January 15, 1969. A guy by the name of Delano DeShields is born in Seaford, Delaware. Yeah, so I had a chance to see him play. And if you remember, I think he has a son that played too. Somebody help me out on that. Come on, I know some baseball fans in here who know a lot of it. So somebody want to know, do I watch football? Yeah, I watch every sport. Especially when I was growing up, I was probably one of the biggest Kansas City Chiefs fans from the 1960s that you would ever want to meet. And from time to time, I give football stories on this a website about some of the things I experienced growing up because the Chiefs football club was up the street from my sister where they trained, and I would go down and ball players would give me rides home. I had a chance to meet Fred Williamson, the Hammer back then. He was the first one that I met, first ever professional athlete that I met, especially he was a football player. First professional baseball player I met was a guy by the name of Reggie Smith for the Boston Red Sox because he had a cousin that played on my fifth grade team. And so the Red Sox were in town. And so he came to give his cousin's little team, fifth graders, a pep talk. How about that? Can you imagine being a fifth grader getting a pep talk from Reggie Smith? Yeah, I think that was his rookie year or something. But they went to the World Series. I'm watching him in the World Series. I've been locked in to baseball ever since. But yeah, the Chiefs, I was a big Chiefs fan. And man, I love those guys so much. I used to cry when they lost. How about that? So anyway, that's going back. But Delano DeShields, and he used to uh, actually pull his pants leg up on his uniform when everybody was wearing their pants down to their ankles, and so he could use that as a silent tribute to the black baseball leagues because that's how they wore their uniforms. So, guys, that does it for me tonight. I just want to thank everybody who's been supporting me along the way. Pick up a couple of subscribers every time I come on. So I just want to let you know that we just passed 500 subscribers and now we're going for 600. So if you like this kind of baseball information, maybe some people love watching the baseball channel, but sometimes it bores me out because if they're not talking about a guy hitting a home run, they're talking about how fast somebody can throw the ball. Well, can you get anybody out? That's what I want to know. And so I like stories. I like this information that I'm providing because it's kind of different. And this is what kept me involved with baseball all these years. And of course, promoting the Negro Leagues for over 42 years. And right now, I think that I'm unsurpassed in that right now because some of the people who were out there when I started, John Hallway, Jim Riley, Jim Riley, he's not active anymore. I think John's passed away. Actually, I know John's passed away. Those guys were out there doing the best job they could. And this is all around 1980, 1981, guys. So you're hearing from a person who actually have lived this history. And I had probably the best gig job you ever want to have, and that was baseball history. So I've been telling all these stories for years. So that does it for me tonight. You can listen to any broadcast. If you want to hear a little bit more about that Satchel Paige event in 1971, go back and listen to yesterday's broadcast. But I have a lot of broadcasts out there. I'm pulling up on 200 broadcasts. Oh, wait a minute. No. Yeah, 200 broadcasts. All right. So that's a lot of broadcasts, guys. So, and that's just since July. So I've been coming on regularly. And so, once again, want to thank you. And I do want to say this. I want to thank, her name is Wanda. She's a descendant of the Clifford Bell family. And I was on the phone with her. We were doing some history. And I'm going to do a spotlight on Clifford Bell real soon. Based on some of the things that she's been telling me and some of the things that I got from an interview I did with his daughter maybe 20 years ago. So stay tuned for all of that and for more baseball information. And I'll be back tomorrow with another edition of This Day in Black Baseball History. And this has been the January 15th, 2026 edition of this ongoing conversation about something that I certainly love, and I hope that you love it too, and that's baseball history. Bye. Have a nice evening.